On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
Hey everybody, we're the Menschwarmers. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my co-host Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
Hello. I'm actually heading down to the area of our people entering fake spring, going to Scottsdale, Arizona in a couple of days. So I'm antsy for that.
The other desert full of Jews.
Yeah, the other desert full of Jews, exactly. Might see our friend Lenny Silberman. We'll see. Give him a shout, go see my family. It should be really nice. Yeah, otherwise, looking forward to the spring. The season's coming.
Even though we're in Toronto, where we've been dumped with a few feet of snow the last few weeks, golf's on the horizon for you and I. I was down on vacation in the Dominican Republic, and I got to play 18 holes, which was really nice. The other way, I walked by Placido Polanco's house on the golf course, so that's somebody. And you get to go to Scottsdale and play, and we have a golf-related guest today because we have Jake Adams from Country Club Adjacent. Country Club Adjacent is a collective, I guess, or a group of comedians who are I would say sort of comedy golf influencers is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
They're most well known for what they call the back off challenge, which is they basically chirp people while they're trying to hit, while they're trying to tee off. They make jokes about them and people have to hit through them. Which is a bit like playing with you because you can never you never shut up when people are trying to hit the ball.
That's about right. I'm all about the head games. All about the head games.
And Jake has also done a series as part of Country Club Adjacent where he's been touring the best Jewish country clubs in the world. And so we talked to him about that. That interview will be at the end of the episode or the second half of the episode. Really great to chat with him. He has profiled Oakdale, our local Jewish club. Ours implies that we're members, which we're not. But the cities,
our adjacent club.
The collective Jews, the collective Jews of Toronto, are the club that we would like to be members of if we had the means. But yeah, really great to talk with him. Before we get to that, let's just go over some Jewish sports news that's been going on. Big baseball signing recently.
Big baseball signing. Our, I guess, friend of the pod. We can officially call him a friend of the pod and a salsa entrepreneur. Alex Bregman has signed with the Boston Red Sox. We've covered the Red Sox. I would say somewhat begrudgingly. We were both Blue Jays fans and not huge Boston Red Sox people.
Yeah. Would have loved for Alex to come to Toronto.
Yes, we did. I think we had some sort of previous episode in which we discussed the kosher hot dogs at Fenway Park. They do have a lot of kosher food there, so Bregman will be relatively happy. But Alex Bregman has signed with the Boston Red Sox. Would have loved him in Toronto. But sort of there's been a bunch of relevant coverage from some other friends of the pod. Jamie, why don't you tell us about that?
Gabrielle Starr of the Boston Herald, who was on the podcast back in 2023, wrote an article talking about Alex's pride in being a Jewish ball player. Talked about some of the things that we had talked to Alex about, growing up with a dog named Koufax, what it meant to him. But a lot of it is about, how things changed for him since October 7th, having a real sense of needing to do something for the community. This is something we talked to him as well. I think it was a very incredibly poignant moment when, within a few weeks of October 7th, he was coming out to play in a World Series game with a Magen David drawn on his hat. So I think he is going to be, he's an incredibly likable guy. It was really nice to chat with him last year. He will be a fan favorite in Boston. He is going to be a fan favorite for Jewish baseball fans in the Northeast. Certainly.
As a Boston Jew knower, as in I know relative Boston Jews, I'm curious to be the first. Who will be the first person to walk up to Alex Bregman and say, "So, Brookline or Newton?" when he first gets into the scene in Boston.
I think the answer will be no. I live in a condo downtown like every other baseball player.
You're like every other baseball. Exactly.
Yeah.
Although Brookline is very, very close to Fenway Park. Fenway Park, I think, is in Brookline technically.
Right.
For what it's worth.
We should mention, we didn't mention the numbers here. His contract they signed is a 3-year deal for $120 million. So I don't want to say that, that's the Menschwarmers effect. That's the Menschwarmers bump, getting someone paid $40 million a year. But at least one of our guests is getting paid $40 million a year. Just on a statistical averaging.
Yeah.
That's not bad. So if you have some
say, this is a good question. Until we get Steve Ballmer, and that's an until. Who has been the most financially successful Menschwarmers guest?
Well, now I think we know. Absolutely.
Yeah. Until we get Ballmer. Until we get Ballmer.
Yeah, until we get Ballmer or another
or Larry
Jewish,
Ellison.
another Jewish owner. There are a few owners who, it's like the Chris Rock joke about Shaq. Alex Bregman's $120 million isn't bad. He's rich. The guy who's signing that check is wealthy. So
right. That's a very good point.
I mean,
John Henry, who's the people, definitely not Jewish.
Not Jewish, but anyways, it's a lot of dimp for Alex Bregman. Wish him all the best in Boston, except on the field against the Blue Jays. I want him to strike out every time. But as a Jewish ball player, I wish him lots of luck. And I am crossing my fingers and hoping that a year from now, we're reporting on a Team Israel baseball super team that
absolutely.
That includes it. Who knows?
It's, I think about when the Red Sox and the Yankees are going to play next year. And my dream for that game, other than the meteor hitting, is for Max Fried to strike out 24 guys. The only 3 runs he gives up are all Alex Bregman solo home runs, and he strikes out everybody else.
Right.
That's my dream.
A few other Jewish baseball signings. Rowdy Tellez signed a minor league deal with Seattle. I don't know enough about their sort of depth chart or what they're looking for, if he has a real shot at making the team. Rowdy's been a guy, obviously we've talked about a lot, a big lovable power hitter, sort of got a raw deal in Pittsburgh last year. When he was there, they cut him because of some performance bonus that they would have had to pay if they hadn't. So we'll see if he's able to break in with Seattle or somewhere else. I think he's still a relatively young guy and can make it making the big still and get some. And unfortunately, sad news to say, Spencer Horwitz, former Toronto Blue Jay, former guest of the Menschwarmers, had some wrist surgery. He is progressing, so I think it's he's not going to be out for too long, hopefully, but hopefully he can get back into the swing of things. It's interesting that baseball,
he's going to be on the major league team.
Sure. Just whether or not he starts the season on the IL or not. But I hope he's get back. If he gets back to swinging, he missed the first month, get right back in the swing of things. It is amazing that baseball, it does seem like every guy really does need all 6 weeks of training to get back into playing form. I don't know what that is, but I think it's just the rigors of an everyday sport that you gotta get back into playing shape and do it. So we wish Spencer luck with his recovery, and we'll continue to keep an eye on him and talk more about baseball as we round into the spring.
There's obviously, I think we mentioned this before. Jock Peterson caught on with the Texas Rangers as well.
Yep, signed a 2-year deal with them.
We follow. It looks like Harrison Bader caught on with Minnesota as well after spending a couple of years in New York. So it's good. There's still a lot of Jews looking in the major leagues, and we're still happy to see that. Another player that we should possibly talk about is that Kenny Rosenberg, whose name sounds like the birth name of a news anchor. Kenny Rosenberg has moved to Korea. He is signed in Korea. Wow. So we lose one, but Korea gains another, which is pretty exciting.
Moving on to another sport, I wanted to highlight the recent win by Denis Shapovalov of the Dallas Open tennis tournament. This was his biggest win in a long time. So just to give some backstory, Denis was born in Tel Aviv. Our understanding is his mom is Soviet Jew. His dad's Russian Orthodox. I don't know how he identifies, but he grew up in Richmond Hill and was born in Israel.
I think he wears both a cross and a Star of David around his neck.
Yeah,
that's his
regardless.
thing.
We've sort of embraced him. we've embraced
claim
him to some degree. He's Jewish enough, and he won the Dallas Open. He beat 3 top 10 players in Taylor Fritz, who is also of some Jewish ancestry, Tommy Paul and Casper Ruud. Is it Ruud or Rudd? Ruud? Ruud, right?
I think it's Ruud.
Yeah.
But I don't quite understand like Dutch, accents.
Right. I think Norwegian, but it has that sort of umlaut feel to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, it was a big win for him, an ATP 500 event. He moved up to the top 35 in the world, and he is now, as the time we're taping this, he has reached the quarterfinals of the Mexican Open. Again, these are not low level events. I wouldn't say these are the tour events that you're supposed to go out and compete in if you want to compete at the Grand Slam events. And this is exciting. He is sort of the kind of guy who it's not that he didn't make it. It's like he came very close to reaching that highest point. They've
called everyone sort of in the last 10 years like the lost generation. Like if you're older than Alcaraz, who's the new superstar of tennis, but younger than, say, Nadal or Djokovic, who just retired, you haven't really. There's been only a couple of guys who have ever won anything. Right. And Shapovalov was sort of the end of that. So if he could steal a couple of good years out, maybe not so lost after all. That would be pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, he made it all the way to the semifinals in the 2021 Wimbledon. That was sort of the high point of his career. And
there was his breakout.
Lost to Novak Djokovic, which, again, that is what every tennis player has done for the last 20 years. Yeah, we should all be so lucky. And that, he's only 22 years old. He's only 25 now. So it's like there is still some chance of a, late 20s run. I think it's definitely possible that it's now. Tennis is so fickle. This is a guy who's dealt with injuries and been able to bounce back. And if we're really seeing it happen now, that's something.
Moving on to a little stick and puck. You'll hear us talk briefly in our interview. We learned Jake is a big hockey fan. But before we get there, last week was, I guess, the best alternative to an all-star game that professional sports has had in a very long time.
We're talking, of course, about the Four Nations Cup. Four
Nations face off. It was Four Nations facing off.
Four Nations facing off. We of course had dual loyalties as Canadians. We were supporting our local club, but a lot of Jewish players for Team America. So
unfortunately, it was not a banner. Yeah, it was not a banner performance for the Jews on Team America. Jeremy Swayman did not get into any games. He didn't play. And he's not having the best season either, so he's doing okay. But Adam Fox was Team USA, was probably going in being their number 1 or number 2 defenseman without Quinn Hughes, another Jew who was hurt. And unfortunately, Fox did not have that good of a tournament. He was a little bit slow and a little bit ineffective as a defenseman. And then we found out today, literally maybe an hour before this podcast, the Rangers announced that he was playing through injury and is now out sort of medium term. The injury is not believed to be season ending, but it is indefinite. That said, the Rangers have been very disappointing, and there's 20 games left in the season. So, they might as well shut him down. And then lastly, Jack Hughes, MVP candidate Jack Hughes, leading a very good Devils team, was left off the score sheet during the tournament too. With a team that good, it's a little bit hard to stand out. But I'm sure that Jack is going to have a great second half to the season. And New Jersey is going to make some noise in the playoffs, and he's going to have to be right there to do it. So
probably a preview of the Jews that we're going to see on the U.S. Olympic hockey team next year.
Almost certainly
in Milan. Yeah, in Milano Cortino. I guess Swayman probably, maybe on the bubble. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think given his season this year, he'll be on the bubble. But he still has, it depends if he drags Boston back into the playoffs. They're currently not in a playoff position, but if he drags them back into the playoffs and or has a great start to next season, he's got plenty of time. Rosters aren't due, I think, till the Christmas before the Olympics. So, we've got 9 months until they set the Olympic
we'll
team.
See who's doing well in the first half of the NHL, of the 2025-26.
Yeah,
NHL
but barring
season,
injury, at least 2 Hughes brothers are going to be on that team. Adam Fox as well
is a lock. It's tough. It was so great. Like everyone was amazed at how much everybody cared about it, like the players included. It felt like such an important game for them.
It was the most watched hockey game in America ever.
Wow.
The final was. But yeah, so many guys are playing through injury, right? Matthew Tkachuk might be out for the year because of, playing through injury, and Adam Fox too, right? It's amazing how much they care. There was in the Sweden-Finland game, there are two countries that, their hockey rivalry is everything. The Finnish player Michael Granlund, who scored the overtime winning goal, was truly covered in blood when he scored the goal. And you will never see that in any sports all-star game.
I saw a clip of somebody asking the Finnish players before the game to say something nice about Sweden. And pretty much to a man, they had nothing nice to say. One or two of them said the meatballs are good.
Yeah.
But it turns out those countries also bad blood hockey-wise. So
they don't like each other hockey-wise.
Excited to see. Those 4 teams at least will be in the Olympics next year, and some others as well. We'll see whether the 4 nations face off, or 5, 6. Who knows how many nations there are that play hockey? It could be any number.
It could be any number of nations
squaring off in the future.
I think there's going to be a World Cup in 28.
Okay.
Which will have 8 or 12 teams.
4 nations, Olympics, 27 they'll have to figure out, and then 28 a Canada Cup, and we'll reset after that. Anyways, exciting stuff in the international hockey world, and glad to see some Jews involved. Let's go now to our interview with Jake Adams.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
Well, we're very excited to be joined tonight by Jake Adams. Jake, thanks so much for joining us. Jake, can you tell us our listeners a little bit about who you are?
Sure. My name's Jake Adams. I used to do stand-up comedy, and now I just make content on social media. And I'm Jewish, and I was also 19 minutes late for this.
That's okay. When you were late, I was saying I think even if I was reminded, I might still forget to pick up my kids every now and then from school. It's just like you got other stuff going on. So Jake, you're part of a golf influencer group, I think is probably the best way to put it, called Country Club Adjacent. And as part of that, you have been ranking and rating and touring Jewish country clubs across North America. And so I guess we wanted to start by talking about that a little bit. How did you will yourself into what seems to be the greatest gig in the world?
So Country Club Adjacent, I founded about 5 years ago. And at the time, there were no real comedic voices in the golf space. Mm-hmm. Now there's a bunch of them that have popped up, post-COVID and everything. So many more people are playing. But when I started it, I was doing stand-up comedy, and I never told any sort of golf-related jokes because there just wasn't an audience for it.
Sure.
Or I, was around country clubs working as a caddy, and I just never felt comfortable enough to or the people I were caddying for, they had a different sense of humor than I did. So I finally was just like, how can I combine these two things that I love the most in my life, which is golf and comedy? And I was just like, there's probably other people out there like me that have a similar sense of humor and probably play golf occasionally. So let's just try it. And I kind of just happened to do it at the right time, I think. And through COVID, so many more people started playing and the game got a bit younger. And, I found my demographic of people that like to go out and have that individual expression and not feel like you need to look a certain way or, act a certain way that maybe is not really the value of why you're out there. Maybe you just love the game.
You've just sort of described the history of the Jewish country club, on purpose or not. So how did you get the idea to handle your way onto as many Jewish golf courses as you possibly could?
Yeah, it's really, the list of Jews on my phone right now is pretty unbelievable from all these country clubs across the country. But, it was just kind of, again, in the same light of, the idea of Country Club Adjacent is like I think part of it is access, right?
Sure.
And feeling like we don't have any access to these actual country clubs. We have to play the munis or just the public courses. So that was a big part of it, of just showing people what is out there and what is, and I think that through the videos, people have, been like, oh man, there's a club there for me or my people. I want to join that place.
Cool.
And also, it's just combining another thing that is part of me. I'm a comedian, I play golf, and also I'm Jewish. So, as soon as I found out how many Jewish country clubs there were, it really was like, oh wow, there might be a series here. And as you guys may know, most of the Jewish country clubs started because Jews were not allowed into, the regular country club in a lot of cities in the country. I would say the majority of them, that's how they were founded.
Absolutely. We're both in Toronto, Canada. We've seen, actually, the first time I heard of you, heard of this series, I should say, I was playing with my uncle and his friends at the Oakdale Golf Club. And one of them was incredibly excited to show me the video that you had made of Oakdale.
Welcome to the 13th hole at Oakdale Country Club, aka the Bar Mitzvah hole. It's at this point of the round where you need to step up, become a man, and make a birdie. Sent this potato right down the slotka. You can call me Lachim. I have 185 yards left in. Please give me the strength of my mother trying to raise money for my bar mitzvah. We're going to need all of it. I found the green like it was in an envelope addressed from my grandparents. $18. Nice.
Like, I think that people who are involved in the Jewish golf world, like this, you are their recognition. This is their Super Bowl. I think they were more excited about your video than hosting a PGA Tour event, is what I'm getting at. The average member of Oakdale, in my experience. So can you tell us a little bit how the process works of how you find yourself at Oakdale or at Brentwood or at, trying to think of another one, Boca?
Sure.
Take your pick.
Yeah. As soon as I put out the first video, I got a couple.
And where was the first one? Sorry, where was the first one?
The first one I did was on Long Island in New York. This place called Old Oaks. And I did it. I didn't ask. I asked the member for approval. And he was like, yeah, this is a great idea. This is fantastic. It's gonna be so funny. And I put it out there. And the video immediately started to do really well. And I got maybe 5 DMs from other Jews across the country being like, I'm a member of a Jewish country club. You got to come to Michigan. Where there's a couple of them near Detroit. And I was like, great. And then the club, the board of old Jews found out about the video, and they were like, we don't want any sort of outside access. I don't blame them for that. There's, it's their club. They own it. They can do whatever they want with it. So from there on, I made a point of I'll come to your club and review it, but you have to make sure that it's okay with the owners and they want it. I think opinion, it's great publicity for the club. More people are going to find out about it. You're going to gain membership. And, I heard some backlash of, obviously, politically with everything that was going on since October 7th, we don't want any recognition. Right. But my take as a comedian is that I think even in the toughest of times, you should be able to make jokes about the situation, and it can help you get through it. I think Jews have been doing that for as long as we can remember. So that's why I was kind of pushed on, and I was like, I really want to continue on with this series and see if I can, there's some positives that can come out of it. And, I'm just a comedian. This isn't like a political series.
Well, it's very funny.
It's very funny. Yeah. So one of the things you look for, or that you rate at all the country clubs, or most of them, is the pickle quality at the various Jewish clubs. You also are always on the lookout for a free toothbrush. Is there anything else that you've noticed that happens to be something that is persistent at Jewish clubs, or common at a lot of Jewish clubs? Something that's persistent? I feel like a wall of dudes that look like your uncle, pictures from 40 years ago. That's every Jewish country club has one of those.
It's like the wall of shul presidents at every synagogue.
Exactly. Anything else that's come up as we keep seeing this thing at Jewish country clubs?
There's always an old Jew sitting in a corner by himself eating soup. At most clubs, there's Jews just eating some sort of soup. by themselves. And I think they're in the best place possible in their life. And they're just like,
they don't come for the golf anymore. They just go for the soup.
Yeah. Yeah.
I respect that.
A good Jewish country club has like a pretty fire canasta room. They play bridge.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
What I look for specifically is the schwitz as far as steam room, sauna, ice bath is a real plus now.
I was just gonna say, it is such a funny thing of these, clubs that are so private, and you are sort of, making this private thing public, but it is interesting that the limited glimpse we get into these country clubs, like maybe for a tournament or something like that for a very select few, but really, we live in a city with, a dozen golf clubs in the city, like, relatively big ones. And most of them I've never seen the inside of, or, aside from, a glimpse from the road or something like that. So it's really interesting just to see sort of inner workings I don't know if you grew up playing at a country club or anything like that, but like, I'm more of I've been more of a public course guy my whole life. And it is interesting to see the sort of inner workings of that.
Yeah, 100%. No, I grew up playing public golf in Massachusetts. And, occasionally when, for like a tournament or something, or if I caddied at a place that would allow me to play like on Mondays, then but we were never even allowed in the clubhouse though. It's like, you get to be on the golf course and that's it.
Sure.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Barnstable, Massachusetts. It's a little town on Cape. Yeah.
Yeah. You're a Cape Cod Jew.
Yeah.
I was about to say all 10 of you must be very proud.
Yeah, dude. I think I was the only Jewish kid in my class, and I think we had about like 900 people in my graduating class.
Sorry, you mentioned you grew up in Massachusetts. You've been all over the country. Where has been your favorite country club so far? Or can you pick one?
Yeah. I think that a lot of so many of them are different and unique in a fun way, but there's one out in the Hamptons, and this place is insane. It's not like a traditional Jewish country club. It's just owned by one guy who's Jewish, but it's it's called the Bridge, and it's in Bridgehampton, and it was built on an old racetrack. And on the course itself, they have these $1 million art installations on the greens themselves. So like, you hit it over a green, you're hitting into this piece of the Eiffel Tower. There's like really old classic cars on the course and in the clubhouse, and it like overlooks the ocean. The place is pretty special.
I think that's a great genre of country club, of just like this one incredibly rich guy is a little bit eccentric, and he just decide to spend a big chunk of his fortune to make a private club. And, the golf is spectacular, and we don't, it's got its own weird quirks, but it's like, instead of being owned by members, it's just like, no, it's this guy, it's his way or the highway, and everything is sort of catered to his needs. Like there's a few of those in the world. And I think they tend to have sort of interesting quirks and weird idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
Being a Jewish guy from Massachusetts, how big of a deal to you is Jeremy Swayman as a person?
Yeah. I mean, he's the best, man. Like it seems like him and who's the other goalie in the Bruins that I think he just got traded, but
Ullmark.
Yeah, Ullmark. They seemed like they had the best time possible, and you see like maybe a bit of contempt when you're a backup goalie, but they split the time evenly, and they had a cool handshake. And he seems like the man. So yeah.
But it's nice to see a Jewish goalie be successful.
There's really, I don't know if I can name another one. Or for that fact, there's only a handful of Jewish NHL players ever.
It's obviously, the end of winter now. Do you have any more Jewish courses lined up for when the weather gets a little better? Anything to preview in terms of things to look forward to this spring? Any other Jewish country clubs you're going to be able to profile?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to make another trip to Florida next week, so do some more of those. But where I really want to circle, well, there's a couple in the Midwest, like St. Louis has a couple good ones.
Cool.
But through this process, people reached out from Mexico City, from Colombia.
Wow.
There's 5 Jewish clubs in the UK. There's one in Dublin.
Amazing.
All of those. And then I want to end the series at the only golf course in Israel. I feel like that's
that would be amazing
to happen. So.
I drove by it when I was in Israel a little while back. It's nine holes, but it's nice looking. I mean, I'm sure it's cool to see.
We had the Israeli LPGA player Letitia Beck on the show.
Yeah, she owes me $20.
Really?
Yeah, I saw her at a course in Florida, and she was she doesn't have to pay me back, but my buddy who she's friends with, like, hey, do you have an extra 20? And I was like, oh, that's Letitia Beck. I want her to owe me $20. So I just gave her.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But I would love.
That's great. I love. This is really a small Jewish golf world.
Yeah.
This is. But anyways, it's great to see, and I'm glad that you've had such great reception. I think Jewish golfers. We're proud of our courses. We're proud of our game, and we're out there. It's a good time for Jewish golf on a professional level and in the influencer world too. I guess
if we got time for it, I'd love to tell you guys my favorite Jewish golf redemption story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It happened right here in Los Angeles. So LACC, Los Angeles Country Club, was like the nicest golf club, but they did not allow at the time what they said was people in the industry, which really they meant no Jews can't join. So the Jews went literally a street over and formed this club called Hillcrest.
My cousin's bar mitzvah was there like 3 months ago, actually.
It was. So as soon as they founded this golf course, they realized that off the 10th hole, when they were digging to build the golf course, they found oil. So now the founding members of Hillcrest still don't pay to be members there, and they get residual checks from the oil rig. If you play the course, look off. There's kind of like these hidden oil rigs. And yeah, I mean, we couldn't join LACC, but we kind of made our own path there.
They said the oil was only going to last long enough to pay for 1 year of dues, but it's paid for 8 years or 80 years already.
Yeah.
We heard a great story. We had Dan Rappaport on a couple of years ago, and he told us that for a long time, until the U.S. Open last year, the course record at LACC was held by Max Homa.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's good redemption too.
Yeah, great redemption. There's some good revenge. Who would not have been allowed to play on the course when he set the record? Have you ever thought about that as trying to now go to restricted clubs?
I definitely want to do a couple reviews of a course and, open with like, this course is not Jewish. They wanted to make sure that not Jewish.
Right.
Honestly,
look,
they told me to tell
I would be shocked. I would be shocked if anywhere openly acknowledged being restricted in this day and age. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of places in the U.S. that happen not to have Jews, whatever. If there's a golf course in Tulsa or whatever that doesn't have any Jews, I wouldn't be shocked. But I'd be amazed if anywhere would openly acknowledge being restricted.
Yeah, I think most places at this point that were restricted has like one or two Jewish members, or they'd be open to it. They were in the area, but
The fancy course in Toronto, someone sued to get in, basically. And it wasn't that long ago. It was like 25 years ago. It's
really recently.
Anyways, but like the old joke about not wanting to be anywhere, that would have us for members. We'll make our own club.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, thanks again to Jake for joining us. After our interview with him, we sort of went over, did some kibitzing about Jewish golfers. And should have said this earlier, I wanted to mention there's been some recent success that Daniel Berger had a tied for second at the Phoenix Open.
Yep.
It was one of those tournaments that somebody ran away with, like Thomas Dietrich was sort of ahead the whole time. But Berger had a really great
he had a chip in on 16, which was or not 16 on 15, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. That's right. He had a great tournament and he finished tied for second. Then at the Genesis at Torrey Pines, he came in 12th. So very solid start to the West Coast swing. We'll see how he does with the Florida tournaments. I think now he is more or less into all the signature events just because of his FedEx Cup standing.
Yeah, he is. He's currently in what's called the Next 10. We discussed this, off camera a little bit recently.
Nobody needs to actually know the vagaries of golf tournament. Like field
standards,
qualifications. It's very Byzantine.
Either the guy I like is in it or not, and he's going to be in a lot of them.
He'll be in a lot of them. I'm not sure if he's playing this week, but there's some signature events coming up, and I guess we'll see if he's able to qualify for the Masters based on that. But excited to see how he's doing now that his back is better and his swing looks
his
great.
Swing is very different than it used to be, but it looks
game,
great.
Yeah. His short game looks great, so excited to watch that. Excited about golf, Gabe. We're like a month away from being out. Maybe we'll not playing. Maybe we can like an outdoor range session a month from now. 6 weeks,
I think 6 weeks we'll be on the course.
Spring.
We'll be on the course.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we'll get to some Jewish clubs with Jake one day, and we'll keep you all posted.
Yeah. Anyways, until then, until we reach you again, you can find us on the Canadian Jewish News' website, thecjn.ca. Follow us on Twitter at Menschwarmers. Like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get it. We are brought to you by the Canadian Jewish News, and we are produced by Michael Fraiman. Thanks for listening. We're the Menschwarmers.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.